Welcome to Benson on Injury Law.
Hello and welcome back to Benson on Injury Law with Paul Benson. Paul is a personal injury attorney based in Wisconsin, and for more than a decade, he's helped people understand their rights, deal with insurance companies, and get fair treatment after an accident. I'm Kevin Rosenquist, and today we're talking about how to tell if you really have a personal injury case. Paul's going to walk us through what really matters under Wisconsin law and how claim value is determined. Paul, good to see you.
Hey, you too. Thanks, Kevin.
So when someone calls you and asks the inevitable question, do I have a case? What's the first thing you usually try to understand?
So when they call, there's three things that we're looking for in every personal injury case. We call it, the three legs of the stool of the injury case. The negligence, causation, and damages. So I'll go with the negligence first. So we had to prove that the other person basically did something wrong, that they did something dangerous, that they did something careless. That's the first step always that we're looking for when we're assessing a case. The next thing is that the damages piece. Are there injuries? Are there real injuries here from the person? On very, very modest injury cases, sometimes that can make more sense to handle that yourself or in a small claim setting. So we need to make sure there's some real damages there. And then the middle prong is kind of the tricky one. That's causation. We need to prove that that other person's negligence caused the injuries, right? So we have to connect those three together. And then, a lot of times the fourth one that is not maybe part of the legal case, but practically is just as important is there insurance coverage? Without insurance coverage, with the laws in Wisconsin or surrounding bankruptcy, it's very hard to make a recovery from somebody who doesn't have insurance. So those are kind of the four items that we're looking for.
How important is medical treatment and documentation while you're trying to figure out the strength or value of a case?
Yeah, it's really important because a lot of times this case is going to settle or resolve at trial a year or two later. So those medical records are admissible evidence in Wisconsin law, and they are the backbone of the case. Those medical records are going to tell the story of your injuries in terms that hopefully the jury can understand. If you just have to go back and testify without any kind of medical treatment to support your case, no medical records, well, number one, it's just going to be hard to do because your memories aren't that good. But also a jury is going to say, well, if your injury was serious, you probably would have got this looked at the hospital or by a doctor. So for those reasons, it's very important to go get checked out. So your injury is documented properly, and that we have that evidence for your case.
When you're reviewing an injury claim, there's more than just the bills. I mean, there's also how it affects someone's day-to-day life. How much does that assessment impact how you move forward?
It's a huge part of it. So the case is a lot more than, medical expenses. Sometimes you can have injuries. A concussion is a great example where there's really no medical treatment you can do for a concussion or very little, but that can affect your day-to-day life greatly. So that's something that you want to make sure you tell, a lawyer when you're calling them is, how is this affecting you day to day? Another area is missing time from work. You're entitled to getting those lost wages if you had to miss time from work from, let's say, a car accident. So it's another really important part of your claim is those lost wages. Sometimes people think, oh, well, I had vacation time or sick time or holiday time or whatever, comp time that I used to cover while I was out of work. You should have been able to use that vacation time that you received to go on vacation.
To do something good, yeah.
Not to sit in the hospital or sit at home and recover. So we can still get you paid back for that under Wisconsin law. So all of those things, those are kind of the three big baskets of damages, though. Your medical expenses, your lost wages, and those day-to-day things, the pain and suffering and stress and anxiety of having to go through the accident.
How difficult is pain and suffering to prove?
It can be really hard. I always ask my clients to think about really specific examples from, I'm thinking now in the context of when they're getting ready to testify at trial or at a deposition. We try to tell really specific stories. So I try to find a couple stories from their activities of daily life. What simple things could you just not do that you needed to do? Whether it could be brushing your teeth or cooking or whatever it is, things that you can't do. And then we try to think of some specific examples from maybe an annual family trip that you weren't able to take, things like that. And we try to put color in it so that the defense and the jury can really see, oh, okay, I go on trips. I like to play basketball or golf. And if I wasn't able to do those things, that would really impact me as well. And that's how we try to build that value.
That's a really great strategy because, yeah, generalizations, people can't relate to generalizations.
No.
Yeah.
No, but it's hard. I mean, you are asking them to put an abstract, pain and suffering's abstract, and you're asking them to put a dollar figure on it. One thing, if you're just searching around on the internet or what artificial intelligence will tell you, is they'll tell you that your case is valued based on the amount of medical expenses, maybe on a certain multiplier. There is some truth in that, and that is because juries are searching for something to grasp on when they're trying to put value on it. So when they hear that medical expense number, we at least now have one data point. And they're probably thinking, okay, yeah, if you have $50,000 of medical bills, your injuries were probably worse than if you had $5,000 of medical bills. So they do kind of use that number sometimes as a starting point to calculate pain and suffering. And that seems maybe silly until you think about, well, what else are they supposed to use? We can't give them, like, it's against our rules here in Wisconsin to say, we'll give them $1,000 a day. You can't do things like that. Don't ask me why, but it's against the rules. We can't come up with our own pain and suffering calculations like that. So the jury is left to kind of grasp with, well, here's one number out here. I'll at least have that number and I'll use that to maybe build the pain and suffering numbers. So yes, the stories really help. As weird as it is, medical bills are part of the pain and suffering calculation.
I think that makes sense. I do. I mean, if you think about it, like if you've got let's say you've got $100,000 in medical bills. I mean, you know that person's been through it. They've been going to doctors. They've been taking time away from their lives to take care of their injury. They're doing physical therapy. They're doing all this stuff. I can see that as a starting point. Makes sense.
And of course there could be, factors that increase or decrease that. I'll go back to that concussion example.
Yeah.
Concussions are always low medical expense cases, relatively speaking, but they can be debilitating for years. And your only medical expenses might be headache medication and anti-nausea or dizziness medication, and that's it. And you're just refilling prescriptions a few times a year. So
That's the flip side to that. Yeah.
Medical bills, they do. The jury undoubtedly locks onto that number. It's my job when it doesn't tell the whole story to try to get the number up higher.
Do you find that a lot of people don't think that a smaller injury is worth pursuing?
Yes. Or they just think any injuries. Now, I think they think they can be tough and they think their injury isn't worth pursuing. They minimize their own injury. Maybe this is like a Midwest thing. And we've talked about this before, but they're like, I'm not a lawsuit person. I'm fine. But the reality is either the insurance company's going to have that money or you. It's a zero-sum game. So you can decide whether, Geico's shareholders have that money or you. And it's one or the other. So you're not really, no one's going to give you an award for not pursuing your legal rights and making a claim. That's what I do, but not as much my case is too small. It's that I am not that kind of person.
Yeah, it's a good perspective to keep too, because you're right. It's not like that insurance company. If they're not giving it to you, they're not giving it to, Toys for Tots. They're not giving it to charity. You know what I mean? They're giving it to their shareholders. So,
yep. And you know what? They provide a valuable service. Without insurance, my job wouldn't be here. A lot of things wouldn't be here. So I'm glad that there is insurance. At the same time, that's what it's there for. So when they're not wanting to pay something fair, that is when you need to call a lawyer. They will lowball every single case because why not? They have no downside to not doing that. I mean, if you think about how many claims there are from these big carriers, if even a tiny percentage of people take them up on that lowball offer, they are realizing millions of dollars of gains. So,
Yep.
yeah, they have every incentive of the world to lowball your case.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. How do they value a claim differently from how you'll value a claim, particularly when it comes to things that you can't point to from a dollar perspective, like pain and suffering?
Yeah. Any invisible injury, I call it, they don't put hardly any value on until you get darn near close to a jury trial. So a concussion, a back injury, anything other than, blood and broken bones, they just do not value. They don't see the value in it at all. They come into it very skeptical. They think they often think that everyone is committing insurance fraud and exaggerating their injuries. Again, in my experience, most people are very reluctant to make a claim. And if anything, they are talking down their own damages, and I have to work to pull it out of them a little bit because they're almost like, oh yeah, and I guess I broke my hand too. I mean, I have that happen all the time, but that wasn't a big deal.
It's gonna heal, no biggie.
Yes. And again, I don't know if it's a Midwest thing, but that,
I think it kind of could be. Yeah, it's like, I still can go fishing this weekend.
yes, there's definitely a grin and bear it mentality,
For sure.
and I don't want the attention on me. I'd rather just move on. But insurance companies have a way of getting under people's skin, and even the nicest Midwest person, eventually, in my experience, will stand up for themselves. And my goal is to get more people to do so, because so many people tell me about these tiny amounts that they settle their cases for or did nothing with. Let's say they were injured, missed time from work, had medical bills, missed out on a family vacation, and they don't even make a claim. And this doesn't add up to me. Of course, I'm biased, but I'm hoping.
Don't make a claim at all?
Yeah, I mean, very common that clients will come to me and say, yeah, I had another, I got a car accident 10 years ago. I didn't even do anything.
Wow, that surprises me, just because I understand downplaying injuries and stuff like that. But if you're in a car accident, like, you gotta make a claim. I mean, I feel like,
Yeah, they'll make a property claim, but so many people don't make an injury claim, especially young people. Younger people in their 20s and early 30s, they especially think, well, maybe it's a lack of familiarity with the system. I'm not sure what it is, but they just don't want to do it.
common fear you hear all the time is, oh, my rates are going to go up. I mean, that could be part of the reason too.
Yeah, and what I would say to that is, number one, the accident, if it's not your fault and your carrier raises your rates, get a new carrier, get a new insurance company.
Mm-hmm.
They're not doing right by you if that's the case. And again, most of the time we're going after the other driver's insurance. Now, let's say they don't have insurance, then I absolutely will encourage you to use your own uninsured or underinsured motorist coverage through your carrier. But if they raise your rates for an accident that was not your fault because there's other uninsured drivers on the road, I would tell you, fire that company and get a new one. They believe they will fire you if they think that you are too expensive to insure. So don't feel loyalty to the insurance company.
Yeah, definitely don't feel loyalty to them. Yeah, I totally. And there's plenty of them out there, as we know. And if you watch any TV.
Yes, and they buy big data. They know how price sensitive you are compared to your neighbor. They will raise your rates differently than your neighbor based on, because I'm getting off on a tangent. They buy your grocery store data. Think about Target or Walmart, the apps that you use while you're in the store. They know how price sensitive you are, and they will use that to determine how much to raise your insurance rates. So you are not playing on an even playing field.
Yeah. I was curious about, we talking about the concussion thing. Do you feel like, because things have gotten a little more, that it's a little more out in the open now with concussions, whether it be sports or just in general, that juries are more, educated on the subject?
Yes, I think so. I think it's definitely changing. And I think the NFL and all of those, these players who have brain injuries and then really, really sad outcomes, I do think that has really helped. I don't think the insurance companies have caught up, though. So I still think they undervalue, especially concussion cases, brain injury cases, more than almost anything, because people can be man, holed up in a dark room for at least a couple weeks sometimes afterwards because the light sensitivity, the sound sensitivity, and they want to just yada, yada. Well, we can't see that. We don't see a broken bone. We don't see a big cut across the face. So how do we know they're not making it up? So they really undervalue those concussion cases.
Yeah, it'll be interesting because, obviously in that situation, if you have confidence in the jury, then you can be like, all right, we're going to trial then, man. I don't know what to tell you. And maybe they'll catch up into that because if more things go to trial because they're not taking it seriously.
I think so. And that's all you can do because the insurance adjusters are always changing over. So you have to find a lawyer who's willing to go to trial. So I think some of the real big advertising shops, frankly, it's a settlement mill. They're not going to try your case. That's not true of all of them, but it is true of some of them. And then I see, I just took over a case from a family lawyer. He was going to settle that case for far too low. We were not able to settle that case at mediation. We're going to go to trial on that case. And if you are not in this area working on it every day, you're just probably not going to be willing to take that case to trial. You're probably looking for a settlement. And it's like a game of poker. If they know you're not going to call their bluff, they are going to pay less money. So it's really important that you find a lawyer who specializes in this area, who's going to stand up for you. And that's what we do every day.
And especially if you know that a law firm has a tendency to settle, you better be sure the insurance company knows that too.
Absolutely. They do. They don't pay as much. If they know you're not an injury law firm and you're not going to try the case, or if they know this place is not serious, they just settle everything that comes across their desk. Yeah, they're not going to pay as much.
Yeah. No incentive, like you said earlier.
It's a poker game.
Yeah, it is. All right. Well, thanks for listening to Benson on Injury Law. If you've been injured in Wisconsin and aren't sure whether you have a case, you can get clear answers before making any decisions. Visit paulbensonlawfirm.com to schedule a free consultation. And if today's episode helped you understand things a little bit better, please be sure to leave us a review and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss any future episodes. Paul, a pleasure as always. Thanks so much for your time.
Yep. Thanks. Good to see you, Kevin.
Thanks for watching. Be sure to hit that like and subscribe button and leave us a review in the comments.